Good afternoon. My name is Takiwa Smith. I'm founder and executive director of SCM Link, and I want to welcome you to our STEM in the City workshop. Our STEM in the City workshop is a program of our Math and Science Career Academy, and its goal is to introduce youth to earth and environmental sciences by providing opportunities for you to meet and interact with earth and environmental scientists and learn about the work that they do every day. And we offer this because even if you don't know what earth and environmental scientists is or what earth and environmental scientists do, it is one of the real world application of science, of STEM, that impacts your everyday lives in so many different ways. And so I am going to go ahead and introduce our program coordinator, Carlin Pounders, that is going to introduce today's speaker for us.
Hi, everyone. So Dr. Jami Sims is a senior physical scientist at a federal agency where she manages interagency committees and working groups to coordinate meteorological services across the federal weather enterprise. In this role, Dr. Sims develops collaborations surrounding various topics in order to gain consensus and implement scientific and engineering solutions by coordinating with senior leadership to address complex matters related to meteorological services, prioritization, planning, and research. Topics of special interest to this role are operational environmental satellites, climate services, and coastal inundation. Most notably, Dr. Sims is serving as the federal agency special advisor for artificial intelligence to lead and coordinate artificial intelligence initiatives across the federal agency line offices and build partnerships across the federal government, private sector, and academia. In this role, Dr. Sims has also established the federal agency's Science and Technology Synergy Committee to coordinate wide implementation of emerging science and technology focus areas, including artificial intelligence, data, science, citizen science, and a couple of other areas. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Dr. Jami Sims.
Thank you, Carlin, and thank you, Takiwa, both of you, for inviting me to speak this afternoon. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I truly love the mission of SimLink, which is exposing youth to different areas within STEM. So I am going to begin sharing my screen. And the way that this will work is I will provide a bit of an introduction of what it is that I do and how I began to get into meteorology and things of that nature. And then we will talk more about the applications of artificial intelligence and how we use it to support our weather forecast and making sure that we are saving lives and property. So if you'll give me just a moment to make sure that I am sharing properly. So Takiwa or Carlin, if you can confirm that you can see my screen, the PowerPoint that I am showing.
I can see your screen. It's showing.
Okay. Thank you. So the federal agency that I work for is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And this is a large agency that covers everything from providing monitoring and guidance on environmental data from the bottom of the ocean floor to the surface of the sun. And I will get more into exactly what it is that we do and what career paths you can take if you're interested in joining NOAA. Before I do that, I do actually want to show you a brief it's a video that I will actually stop before it totally ends. But one of my areas that I am highly interested in that really got me into meteorology is understanding hurricanes. And one of the ways that we are able to forecast hurricanes and provide the needed information for people to evacuate and to take cover as needed is through the use of satellite data. So this video actually talks a little bit about that. And like I said, I won't show the whole nearly 7 minutes of the video, but I did want it to kind of give an introduction here.
A hurricane is Mother Nature's grandest but most ferocious weather machine.
A hurricane is two different things. If you're looking at it from above, from the satellite down, hurricane is a beautiful thing. It's a massive coil of clouds that is rotating, spinning like a top.
When I look at images of hurricanes, I go through so many emotions. As a scientist, as a meteorologist, I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. You know, look at this beautiful storm. But then the human side of me is saying, how can we make sure that people are evacuating, that people have somewhere to stay, that they have the money to feed their families once they leave their homes?
The hurricane on the ground, that's a completely different thing, because all of that rotation you really feel as incredibly severe winds. They can be up to 150 or more miles per hour. You can have up to 40 inches of rain. And the most deadly thing is that the updraft from the hurricane is actually pulling ocean swell up into it. And so it creates a storm surge up to 40 feet high.
And occasionally, when the storms hit at a little higher latitude, they can also spawn tornadoes in their fringe. So really the impacts are the wind, the storm surge, the heavy rainfall, and then occasionally severe weather that forms when they move inland.
I feel like I got a deeper appreciation for hurricanes when I moved to Galveston, Texas. That entire city, it's almost like the ghosts of the 1900 hurricane that are still there, because you see evidence of that storm, that particular famous storm that killed somewhere between 6,000 and 12,000 people. And so that is a very present, thing in the city, even to this day.
So that was a Category 4 storm that hit Galveston on September 8th. And there really was not a lot of information about what was happening in the Caribbean before this storm made landfall.
And the hurricane hit them totally unprepared, and thousands of people lost their lives, tremendous damage because it surprised everyone. With the onsets of satellites, that will never happen.
The first leap forward would have been being able to see the entire planet from space in the first place. So prior to that, how would you know, for example, that a hurricane was coming? It would have been very difficult to know where it was coming, where it was going, how bad it was going to be.
So that's one of the dramatic impacts, is satellite data, sort of like your eyes in the sky to make sure that Mother Nature never can surprise you.
When I was a child, I loved playing with magnifying glasses because you can zoom in, and see so many fine details. And that's what we can do with the satellites that we have now, particularly the GOES-R series. We're getting 60 times more data now than what we were in the previous series.
The first satellites that worked with the GOES-I through M, which were great satellites, but taking a picture of the globe every 25 minutes, the hurricanes would be like here, and then they're here, and then they're here. And it's not like you're losing track of them, but the difference between that and being able to see, oh, it's swerving, it's curling, oh, it's dying. We take a full disk picture of the entire hemisphere in 5 minutes, but we can also look at smaller areas, and you can scan that once every 30 seconds. You get to see, as the hurricane eye wall is forming, you can see that actually forming in real time. The Earth looks alive. It looks like a living thing.
So
I'm going to pause this video right here. And, one of the things that I always talk about is that what really got me interested in becoming a meteorologist was that I wanted to be able to help people to understand and to know when it's time to make changes, be it evacuating and going somewhere safer, or making sure that they have what they need in their homes if they are going to stay there if the storm is not as bad as needing to evacuate, but will still cause damage. And particularly for communities where there are people of color, or even communities that may not have the resources, I wanted to make sure that someone could see a relatable face when it comes to communicating the forecast or the need to make sure that that they need to make changes. Because a lot of times when we talk about receiving information, we receive information we are more encouraged to take action when the person looks like us. And as you can see in the field of meteorology, there are not as many African Americans and people of color as we'd like to have. And so that has always been the drivers behind what it is that I do to make sure that we are saving lives and property. So a little bit about me. I know that Carlin actually read my bio in the beginning of the talk. I am presently a senior physical scientist within the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I've been employed with this agency for nearly 16 years, but a lot of my time was spent in our most notable line office that you are probably more familiar with, and that's the National Weather Service. While I was in the National Weather Service, I worked a lot with environmental modeling. And what that is basically taking codes that we have built and we also refer to it as numerical weather prediction. And the reason being is because it takes a lot of equations in order to create this model, especially using physical science, I'm sorry. And so in creating these models and working to maintain and improve these models, I was actually introduced to artificial intelligence as a summer intern. And during that project that I had where I used what we refer to as a genetic algorithm, I had to understand how a computer code, again, using equations and different instructions, would actually take the information that I provided to it and run it through this genetic process of identifying the best parents and creating what we refer to as children in order to determine what the best physical parameter was for this particular model. And so at that time, I had not actually been exposed to a lot of computer programming, actually using it myself. And so within a couple of weeks, I was able to grasp understanding the code and putting in the information and analyzing that data in order to improve that model. And we were actually able to improve the model by approximately 10%. And that may sound low, but it actually does make a huge difference when we talk about improving these systems. And so to talk about the imagery here, because I won't reread the bio that we have, as I mentioned, communicating the science and the impacts of the science is extremely important to me. And so one of the things that I have been very fortunate to do is to represent my agency and also our partnership with NASA in various media interviews, be it on live television or doing videos, as I just mentioned, to commemorate some of our milestones. But the point is being able to teach people about weather. Now, I'm sure that many of you actually look at the weather on a daily basis because weather has an impact on everything that it is that we do. If you're going to play sports, if you're going to make sure that you're dressed properly in the morning for school or work or whatever it is that you're going to do, you need to know what's going on with the weather. And so there are many different areas and aspects of creating a great forecast that is accurate and that everyone will trust in order to make the right decisions. So to give you a little bit more about my background, I actually attended, and I am extremely proud to say that I attended 2 historically Black colleges and universities. I have a bachelor's degree from Jackson State University, which is located in Jackson, Mississippi. My bachelor's degree is in meteorology. And just a note about the JSU program in meteorology, it is now 45 years old. And I always say that it is, one of the best kind of secrets, I will say, that is kept, because so many people don't know that Jackson State has a meteorology program, even though it's been there that long. And it has produced many wonderful meteorologists. A lot of us do actually work for NOAA in the National Weather Service, but we have also gone on to work in private industry, in academia, and other federal government agencies as well. I also have a doctorate degree in atmospheric sciences from Howard University. And again, even though the program at Howard is considered somewhat of a smaller program, it is a wonderful program. And I strongly encourage anyone who is interested in meteorology and atmospheric sciences to review both of these programs and consider these schools, because the training that I received there has really and truly been beneficial to my career. As an undergraduate student at Jackson State, it was always pushed that we would do internships. And as a matter of fact, when I was there, it was not a question of if you're going on an internship this summer, but where are you going on your internship this summer? And so I applied under the push of my advisor, Dr. Reddy, to apply for the NOAA Educational Partnership Program undergraduate scholarship in 2003, and I was accepted. And that really and truly opened the door for what it is that the agency does, and also how I could see myself in that agency. Following that, I also applied for the Graduate Sciences program. At that time, this program would pay for students who were placed in that program to go to graduate school, but you also receive federal employment. And it was geared towards minority serving institutions, and making sure that underrepresented groups in our field had the same opportunities as everyone else in order to receive employment and education in the different STEM areas. And so again, these are excellent programs that really and truly not only open the door for me for academic training, but also professional development. And it really pushed me to understand and step outside of my comfort zone in knowing what it is that we do and how I can impact society to make a difference. One of the things that I love to do also is mentoring. And what I'm showing here are a couple of images of students who also attended and have now graduated from Jackson State University. At the bottom, the larger picture, you can see a cohort of undergraduate scholarship students that we took to Capitol Hill in order to meet some of the interns that were there, so that they could talk about their experiences, but also talk about their views on how policy could impact how it is society views weather, and how we can better improve to make sure, again, that people are taking action. The American Meteorological Society is an organization that actually brings us together on an annual basis for our larger meeting, but also there are specific topics that AMS covers throughout the year that has additional meetings. But again, it's a time for us to come together and talk about the topics that are important for meteorology. In 2017, I received the award of NOAA Employee of the Month, which I am extremely proud of to have been nominated and to also receive that award, because it's not often that you see someone who looks like me receiving that award, but also to be chosen out of the large organization for that award really says a lot. So I'm extremely proud of that. Now let's talk more about the applications of artificial intelligence in weather forecasting. I don't know if the chat is working, but I wish that I could find out what people think when you hear the term artificial intelligence. Carlin, are we able to receive information in the comments now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Would anyone like to tell me what they think of as soon as they hear artificial intelligence? And you can let me know if we receive a response or not.
Okay.
I'm going to go on, and Carlin, if we do receive a response, just pause me and let me know.
Someone said robot.
Robots, okay. Is there another one? And robots, definitely correct. We do use robotics within NOAA, more so for oceanographic exploration. But yes, we certainly use artificial intelligence with our robots. So now I will go ahead and go on to our next slide. So just to talk a little bit about the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, particularly for supporting disaster preparedness, response, and restoration. Within NOAA, we have different line offices, and we've kind of broken up the category of the dry side versus the wet side. The dry side is more so focused on the atmospheric information, right? The weather, the satellite data. And so the wet side is then more so focused on understanding what's going on in our oceans, and also how fisheries are being impacted as well. What's happening with the biological life within our oceans. So that's considered the wet side. For this presentation, I will more so focus on the dry side, the weather side. One thing that we do every year, of course, is calculate the economic impact of the weather and climate disasters that we experience here in the US. And so in 2019, we had $14 billion disasters. And that is really saying a lot about what it is that we do and the importance of what it is that we do within NOAA. Those disasters can include, anything from the wildfires. I'm sure that most of you have seen on the news or even on social media, someone talking about the wildfires that are currently going on within California. Believe it or not, within NOAA, we also, provide some monitoring as well as red flag warnings that talk about the potential for wildfires being created. And our satellite data is, of course, able to monitor those wildfires. And then we have more computer coding and computer models that can actually predict where the smoke plumes and things like that will go in the face of these wildfires. Additionally, when we talk about tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding, even snowstorms, all of these things are things that we actually monitor and provide information and forecast and guidance for within our organization. And again, it takes a lot of different career paths in order to make sure that we are doing what it is that we need to do to support the public and support our communities. In order to be able to create these different forecast guidance and warnings, it takes a lot of different technology, the satellite data, radars, where we can see where the rain is and be able to have loops and see where the rain has been and potentially where it will go. And we also use buoys, which are put out into the ocean to understand things like temperature, sea surface height, and all of that. And we do, again, use unmanned systems, which can be things like drones. We also use robotics, as I mentioned earlier, for ocean exploration. And so in having all of these different types of technology, we bring in a huge amount of data sets on a daily basis. And so it's extremely important for us to properly monitor the data that it is that we have, and to make sure that the data is good quality data, that we are not providing information to the public that may be inaccurate. And again, that takes a lot of different types of technology in order to do that. Most recently, we have been releasing new science and technology strategies. These strategies are documents that provide guidance on how it is that we will work together across our agency in order to properly manage the different areas. Artificial intelligence being one, unmanned systems, omics. And what omics is, again, going back to the ocean, are methodologies that can understand the protein and DNA of biological sea life. And then we talk about cloud computing, which is something else that you probably hear a lot about now. And then the big data initiatives that bring everything together and provide that overall view of how we will manage our large data sets, so that not only NOAA, but also our partners and the public have access to our data. Now, getting into artificial intelligence, I don't know how many of you were able to join in on the Teen Cafe and listen to Dr. Quigley, who did an excellent job of giving a full background of what artificial intelligence is and the many different applications of it across the board. She gave that presentation through SimLink on Wednesday. And so I really enjoyed her presentation. She talks more again about what it is. She takes a deeper dive into what artificial intelligence is. And here I'm just going to give this overview and then more so focus on the applications of how we use it for forecasting. So artificial intelligence really and truly is software, again, computer codes that we bring together that more so adopt and expand upon creating information or making sure that we have the best data or using the best parameters in order to produce the best forecast. So we use it a lot for improving our model data and also making sure that we are efficiently distributing the data as well. So AI takes a more human approach, but it's done by the computers. And so you're combining how it is that we think about things and how it is that we learn in order to create these codes. And so artificial intelligence, you may also hear things such as machine learning and deep learning. These are subsets of AI. And so just to read the definition here, for machine learning, it's the mathematical models, as I mentioned before, using those equations that can perform these different tasks using instructions, without using the explicit instructions, but relying on the different patterns in order to train the data so that we are getting the understanding that we need. And then deep learning is a subset of machine learning that is unsupervised and is unstructured and unlabeled, but it is also making sure that we are training the data and able to improve upon our models as well. And so again, within NOAA, we continue to expand the amount of data that we have as we bring forth new technologies. As I mentioned in that video, once we launched the new GOES-R series satellites, we brought in 60 times more data just from those satellites than what we had from the previous generation of the GOES series satellites. And so that brings on a stress on our computer resources as well. So we have to make sure that we have the codes in place that can really and truly manage what it is that we are producing. So just to talk a little bit more about artificial intelligence, whereas now it seems like this is something that's new because we are hearing people talk about it so much. Our agency has actually been using this for over 25 years. And the base of using that actually was making sure that we were properly incorporating the satellite data into our forecast models. And so because we've been using it for so long, we are considered a global leader in artificial intelligence. And we not only, again, like I said, use it for ourselves, but we also support the needs of other federal agencies and partners. And actually, our work wouldn't be able to be done without partnering with the different agencies, as well as private industry and academia. What you're seeing here in the YouTube video is an animation of the GOES 16 satellite. And what GOES stands for is Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellites. And I will take a step back here to talk about the satellites that it is that we use for weather predictions. There are two types of satellites that are being used. And so whereas this was showing the geostationary satellite, and that means that the satellite is actually rotating with the Earth. So you're getting the view of a specific location. It's located approximately 23,000 miles above the surface of the Earth. And so it's really giving us that bird's eye view of the specific area that the satellite is monitoring. And so what we have been able to do with the improvements that we've seen with having the GOES 16 and 17 satellites available, the data available, we are able to do, like I said, with the magnifying glass. We can see so many more details just because of the better resolution and also the rapid refresh of the satellite. We can get the full view image of the satellite every 10 minutes. And we can actually zone in, such as this imagery, into a smaller location, a smaller domain, and we can receive the data every 30 seconds or up to a minute, depending on if we have one or two domains covering that specific area. And so again, that's a lot of data. And how do we manage that? How do we get it into the models so that the models have the best initial conditions in order to predict what it is that is going to go on? And so, again, that's another application of AI that we can use. And so what you're seeing here in the satellite imagery that was playing, satellites can show us the amount of moisture in a storm. It shows us the cloud structure of the storm, and it shows us, of course, the location and the strength of the storm as well. And so having this satellite data from the geostationary standpoint is extremely important because our weather forecasters are able to get that continuous data set. Now, you may also hear about polar satellites. Polar satellites are important for numerical weather prediction, again, the forecast models, because they provide data that is taken from an area that is much closer to the surface of the Earth. The difference, though, is that the polar satellites are actually orbiting the Earth. So you're getting swaths of data versus the full continuous coverage of the specific location. And so even though it's data that's much closer to the surface, we actually rely on multiple polar satellites. We partner with different countries as well to get data to make sure that we have what's needed for our forecast models. And so, it takes both the polar and the geostationary satellite data in order to produce the most accurate forecast. So just moving on to the next slide. Artificial intelligence value to NOAA has many different uses, from data quality control, again, making sure that the data we receive from the various technologies is the best data before we put it out or before we use it. Also fisheries surveys, where things like robotics or different cameras are placed into the ocean to collect data for counting fish or different things like that. Model parameterization, again, talking about numerical weather prediction and making sure that we have the best atmospheric parameter to be used in order to calculate what it is that we are interested in understanding, whether it is wind speed or rain, different things like that we look to calculate. Automated weather warning. again, ocean robotics. Environmental mapping is something that we also do within NOAA. And again, hazard detection and identification. When we're looking at the satellite data, our experts are able to give that 24-hour monitoring of the data that we collect, but they're of course looking for hazards. And some of those hazards may even include things like oil spills in the oceans. And so we are constantly monitoring what's going on. The benefits of using artificial intelligence are, of course, system performance and reducing compute cost. Having the large data sets, again, puts a stress on our systems. And we have to make sure that our systems are top notch, that we're using them most efficiently and accurately. And AI can certainly support that. We want to make sure that the skills that our models have are the best, that we are reducing what's called biases. Just to give you an example of what a bias could be, we have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of our numerical weather prediction models. And so if we know that one of our models is actually producing on a regular basis, say, colder temperatures than what our observations are actually showing, then we would call that a co-bias. And so we want to know, how can we reduce that bias in the models, and AI can be used for that. Again, the compute time and cost. By using artificial intelligence, we've been able to reduce the post-processing of data in some instances by 98%. So that means that where something might have taken several months, we're now able to do it in a day or in a couple of hours. As a matter of fact, the example of the middle imagery here that you see is actually reducing the compute time to simulate data from one of the polar satellites. It's reducing it from it taking 1 day or a day of the actual data. It would normally take nearly an hour and a half to process. And using artificial intelligence, that time has been brought down to 1 second. And so, that is a huge computer cost savings for us, because if we can process the information in that small amount of time, then that means that we can use the additional space for something else. Additionally, I have an image here of rip current detection. As you all may know, when we're talking about surfing and just being out on the beach and being able to enjoy being in the water, we want to make sure that we are producing information on the potential for rip currents, because rip currents can actually be a deadly situation. And so our partners in the National Ocean Service, as well as the National Weather Service, they're partnering together in order to use artificial intelligence to detect rip currents. And so, again, we provide forecast and guidance from everything from the bottom of the ocean floor to the surface of the sun. And we want to make sure that our public and communities have what it is that is needed. So to give you another example and to relate it to something that you may be more accustomed to, because I know that everyone has a cell phone and people are getting cell phones now at much younger ages. My 7-year-old has been asking for a cell phone for 2 years now. So one of the things that we have actually had to mitigate within NOAA from one of our satellites that was most recently launched, and that is the GOES 17, which is in the GOES West Position satellite. After that satellite was launched, we discovered that the main instrument on that satellite, which is the Advanced Baseline Imagery, actually had a loop heat pipe anomaly. So what that means is that at nighttime, the instrument was not cooling properly. And so we were getting these distorted images from the satellite that at certain times, in certain times of the year, we were not able to use the information. And so when you think about, how dependent we are upon our satellite data, this is a situation that we really had to explore and figure out how to mitigate. And so what you're seeing in the image on the left side of the screen, you're seeing where there is a little bit of, you're getting a little bit more of the of the data and the image so we can kind of make out what it is, but this is not ideal. You know, we don't want to take any guesses on what's happening. And then on the right side, this is the worst of the worst, where we do not see enough of the data in order to be able to analyze the different situations and weather phenomenon that's going on. And so, again, this is something that our scientists and our experts really had to figure out some different ways to determine how to overcome these issues. And so one of the research aspects that has been going on is actually using the same type of software that we use for facial recognition with our cell phones in order to provide the full imagery. What this system does is it's able to take those pieces of the images that were being provided, and then using that and using what the applications, what the computer code has been trained to do through AI to actually produce a full image. And so, again, this is research. We are not actually applying this at this time, but it was one of the potentials for mitigation that was being shown. And so I wanted to give you this example and relate it to something that we are more familiar with of how artificial intelligence can be used. So when you are holding your phone up in order to have it to unlock and it sees your face, it's doing that scan and taking the data that you've trained it to know to receive in order to unlock. And that's what is being demonstrated here as well. So this is an example of the actual numerical weather prediction and model in data or products that we use within NOAA, particularly within the National Weather Service. I'm sure that if you look at the news or if you follow any of our offices on social media, you have seen different maps that look like this that can actually show you the potential for storms and rain and things of that nature. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is not only producing accurate forecasts so that people know what's coming, but we also want you to know what's not coming. You know, we want to make sure that we are not overwarning people, because what we have found is that when we are providing too much information and overwarning people, we find that people begin to ignore what it is that we're saying. And that can be extremely detrimental in the face of something that is severe, like a hurricane that's coming to a specific area and people don't trust our forecast. And so what's happening here in this imagery is we are taking data from what we call an ensemble. An ensemble is the production of products and output that uses more than one model. Because when you have data from more than one forecast model, you're more likely to get it right, because you can produce a product or service taking in information from models that may have different strengths and weaknesses, as I mentioned earlier. And so here we are using a neural network, which is another form of artificial intelligence, in order to better produce the imagery and making sure that our ensemble forecasts are being able to produce products that are clearly seen. And so with this composite, what you can see is that the imagery is being sharpened by the use of AI, and that we're also removing the false warnings, those false areas that are showing rain that's not really there. And so again, our focus is to produce what we call a weather-ready nation, to make sure that that the public is able to act, but then also not act when it's needed. One of our partnerships that is new and has recently formed, you've heard me say several times that we work with different federal agencies and also what we call private industry, which are companies like Microsoft and Google, and also academia, where we partner with universities in order to conduct research and actually bring the information back in so that we can put it into what's called operations, where it's producing the information on a regular basis that our forecasters are actually able to use. And so under a White House initiative, the Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Response, we're partnering with the Department of Energy as well as Microsoft. Those are the two leading companies or agencies that are currently evaluating ways that we can produce a tool for first responders to be able to act or get to a specific location within 5 minutes. And so I didn't put it up here, but there is a website that talks about this. It's called First Five. I think it's first5-ai.org. And so that provides just a little bit more information on this First Five initiative. But I wanted to show you again how our satellite data can be used for things such as this, especially because we're hearing so much about the impact and what's going on with the unfortunate event in California with the wildfires. And so what you are seeing here is an example of our polar satellites, the joint polar satellite system that we operationalize within NOAA, and also our geostationary satellite, the GOES-R series, and what it can produce. And so you're able to see the type of information that we're getting from this. Not only do we see the location of the fires, but again, you're able to see the motion of the smoke that impacts air quality and the air that we're breathing in from these wildfires. And so, not only what we do is for the first responders to get there, but even in getting to the location to provide the response that's needed, they also need to know the safe and health of what it is that they are actually getting into. For example, the strong smoke plumes that could hinder the visibility. And they also need to know the type of equipment to have in order to protect their lives in responding to these disasters. And so with the collection of all of this data, we're able to determine the best AI methods to use and also determine what products are actually needed for this. And so again, NOAA is an agency that provides so many different data sets on different areas that we have to have the proper management of it and being efficient and being timely. We don't want to put out information that has already passed as well. And so again, AI is being used for these types of things here. So just to bring this to a conclusion, and then I will still talk just a little bit more to give you an overview of the type of career paths that we have within NOAA. But just to give you an overall conclusion, AI is really and truly being used across every science mission area within our organization, again, both on the dry and the wet side of NOAA. And so what we had to do was come up with better coordination of how we were using, we are using AI. And so my role as the Senior Advisor for Artificial Intelligence is to support our leaders in making sure that we are coordinating across the line offices, that we have the resources that we need, and that we are developing the tools and things of that nature that it takes in order for us to really serve out our mission and our goals. Within the NOAA AI strategy, one of the most important aspects of it is creating what we are calling the NOAA Center for Artificial Intelligence. This is recently been placed in some legislation that we look to fully get passed to give us that sustainability in order to request funding and to make sure that we are moving forward with creating this center. What this center will do is facilitate partnerships, but most importantly, to this audience, I think, is making sure that we are training our future workforce and our future generations in order to be able to use AI for our needs. And that is a huge part of what we look to do within our strategy. We want to make sure that not only our current workforce can use this as a tool, but that we're bringing people in. And I know that now, even more so than when I was a youth, understanding computer codes and using things such as AI and different types of technology is happening much earlier. And I apologize for that noise, but it's happening much earlier than what it did when I was a youth, which is wonderful. I'm sure that many of you could actually teach us some things right now. Again, as I talked about the different focus areas that we have within NOAA that we are really prioritizing right now, it takes a lot of synergy, and that means bringing these different areas together in order to produce and meet our mission and goals. Again, we look to save lives and property. We're looking to prepare a weather-ready nation, and we're also looking to understand what's happening within our oceans and how that impacts us with our weather. In addition to that, we also understand what's going on with our space weather. It's important for astronauts to know what's happening with space weather when we're talking about the needs of NASA even, and also understanding how space weather can impact our daily lives here on Earth. Even things like our cell phones and different types of technology is impacted by space weather. So there's a lot that goes on within our organization, and it's important that we are properly coordinating things now and in the future. So this is my contact information. This is actually my work email address here, but I can also be reached at Jami Sims, @gmail.com in order to answer questions about career paths. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. What I also wanted to touch base on are the different areas of career paths that you can take in order to work with us on the technology and also the forecasting. As you know, I mentioned meteorology. The National Weather Service is where most of our meteorologists are working, because we have 122 weather forecast offices across the country. And then we also have regional offices, river forecasting offices, as well as the needs of our headquarters that provide the policies and the oversight of what it is that we're doing across the country, and really creating the different initiatives that are needed in order for us to provide the impact in order for people to act. And so that meteorology is really seen within the National Weather Service. But then we also hire engineers. We need engineers to really understand the systems that it is that we have, be it the large computer systems that we use for the storage of our data, and also the processing of our data and the monitoring of our numerical weather predictions, as well as making sure that we are managing satellites and even developing the tools that are needed, like the drones and the robotics and all of these things. Additionally, we hire oceanographers, cartographers. We hire budget analysts. It's also extremely important that we are managing our business aspects as well. And so we hire lawyers for general counsel needs. And so there is a large amount of career paths that you can take in order to be prepared to work for an agency such as this. And I do hope that out of this presentation and out of this conversation that someone is influenced to really and truly want to find out more information, not just about NOAA, but even the other STEM fields as well. And so with that, I am happy to take on any questions. Thank you.
So, if anyone has any questions, we'll be more than happy to have Dr. Sims answer them. I guess as we're waiting to see if any come up. I literally love how you ended with talking about the different career avenues. that so much relates to the mission of SimLink. What would you say for youth? What sort of classes should they focus on? Anything within the meteorology or atmospheric sciences when they're in undergrad that they should focus on. As you said, if someone is watching and they're really interested in this, what can they do next?
Sure. So again, there are different paths that you can take that will actually lead you to doing things such as this. For me, I had a strong interest in both math and science. And really and truly, when you look at things like the physical sciences, it's really just applied mathematics. And so those are two extremely important areas for us. Additionally, as I was mentioning, the different career paths, one that I failed to mention that is so important is social science and understanding behavior. As we are communicating, and again, communication is one as well that you can take. But as we are communicating the weather, we want to make sure that we are tailoring it in a way that each of the different audiences that we are talking to are able to understand and receive the information that it is that we are providing. And so risk communication, which is a part of social science, but also understanding the economics behind our work is extremely important as well. Are we really and truly getting returns on our investments and making sure that the forecast and guidance that we provide is producing that economic impacts that we hope to see. So those are other areas, but specifically for meteorology, you really and truly want to focus on the physics and different areas of science. In getting my doctorate degree in atmospheric sciences, it was atmospheric physics, atmospheric chemistry, also that we had to take, as well as some of the subsets of those physical science areas like dynamics and things like that you get introduced to in college. And so you can also get here, like I said, through engineering, even, and having that business background. So it's really an area that I encourage people to be more interdisciplinary. And what I mean by that is gaining expertise, not in just one specific area. Of course, you have to get a degree. Like I have a meteorology degree, but I've been able to take my knowledge and use it for engineering. For computer science, for computer programming. So it's really about having an open mind, knowing what it is that you specifically want to focus on, but then having an open mind to understanding the different areas that you can use in order to be the best at your job.
Wonderful. So if there are no other questions, we can go ahead and start to wrap up. I definitely want to you, Dr. Sims, with an opportunity for if there's anything else that you want to say. You definitely provided a lot of. Someone said that what you've shared has been fascinating.
Thank you.
And I agree. It's been really fascinating, and you shared with us a lot of different things that people can take away from this, particularly if they're interested in doing the same thing that you do.
Thank you. I just want to say that it was a pleasure presenting to the SimLink audience today. And one of the things that I always say and give advice on is making sure that we are using our voices to make a difference. And also using our gifts and talents that we have been given in order to make the world better and impact different areas of society. And so I do encourage the audience, no matter what it is, no matter what the thing that they are naturally interested in, but go after it and go after it hard. Don't be afraid to be unique and ask questions and talk to people about what it is that you want to do and build a network. Make sure that you're surrounded with people that can support you and mentor you along the way. And that starts early on. I know that our audience may be as young as elementary or middle school, but even now you can identify the different areas that you're strongly interested in and want to pursue getting more information about. So whatever your it is, just leap into it and go after it hard.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sims. We really, really appreciate having you. I'm from Miami, so when you were like, I use AI for hurricanes, I'm like, what? Like, you do think about robots and, Bixby and Siri, right? So thank you so much. I learned so much. I probably am going to have to look through it again once it posts on YouTube, because I took a little note on our YouTube channel. But I really, really appreciate, because we never really think how different technology that we may think, is used for quote unquote fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
How it impacts our everyday lives and how it's used in multiple ways. I think I remember you saying something that used to take days because of AI takes a few hours, like 15 seconds, like, wow. So thank you so much. I know we learned a lot. I know we are going to everyone that is watching this is going to look at hurricane season a little differently and start paying attention. Even how I use my weather.com app, right? I usually am I going outside today? Let me look at the weather now. Well, now I may look 10 days ahead versus just, the 15 minutes before I start to get dressed. So thank you so much for having us think about that, right? Because, we take advantage of it, right?
Right. And to put a plug in, you should go to weather.gov and look at the National Weather Service's 10-day forecast.
Okay. Do you all have an app? Carlin, can you put that in the chat? Do you all have an app that we could use, or I just need to go to the website?
Go to the website because you can better see all of the information that's put there. There's even a chart that can show you by the hour of when to expect things like rainfall and thunder or snowfall, whatever the situation is. And so you can see those things much more clearly on the website. So weather.gov.
Because sometimes I think weather.com ain't right. Like, I'd be like, you said it was going to rain at 4:00. It is.
Well, all I can say is weather.gov, you put in your zip code or your city.
Okay.
And it gives you the current conditions as well as future conditions.
Okay. Well, I'm from Miami. I have a umbrella and a raincoat in my truck all the time. But, people have gotten caught. So thank you so much again, Dr. Sims. Thank you for everyone to tune in. We are going to try to have another STEM in the City with someone who does work similar to Dr. Sims, because, environmental science are everywhere. Like, their work is in the field. Some of them work in the field, but some of them, like Dr. Sims, are using technology to help us learn about weather and the world around us. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much. And that's why we have these workshops, right? So we can learn more about the world around us through the scientists that study it. So I encourage everyone to, if you had anyone that missed it and you're like, man, you should have tuned in, have them go to our YouTube channel. It's bit.ly, SCM link on YouTube, but you can check our Instagram, check out our live stories, Instagram stories, our Instagram takeover, and our upcoming events, which our next event will be our Teen Science Cafe. I can't even say the word, but he studies reptiles, something like that. Isn't that what he does, Carlin?
Yes.
Something with the H. See, I'm learning stuff. And so that is one of the things that our Math and Science Career Academy focus on, exposing you to as many STEM professionals and what they do so you can learn. So for those of you who like reptiles, then tune in, or your kids like reptiles. I just like, oh, that's nice. I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone. But he does like crocodiles and everything, all of that. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you again, Dr. Sims, and thank you, Carlin, for organizing and help us bringing these scientists so kids can learn and we can have the next. Well, I hate to say the next Dr. Sims because, you know, you are unique to you and the next generation of meteorologists. So we'll add to the next generation of meteorologists so we can have people predicting our forecasts and looking at how AI or whatever the next technology is, right? Because it may not be AI by the time they go to grad school. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day and see you at the next event, SCM Link event.